Hey everybody, it's Dr. Sally here, and this is Headspace for the Workplace. It's a podcast where we cultivate vibrant and psychologically safe and healthy workplaces. And today we've got a touchy topic, and it's a topic about looking in the mirror. For all you leaders out there who are thinking about recalibrating your relationship to alcohol, this one's for you. Now, Dry January has gotten a lot of popularity, kind of across the nation. Every year people dig in. And it really usually has to do with health kinds of issues. People want to lose a couple of pounds and so forth. But if you're really serious about changing your relationship, there's a deeper part at play. Today, I've got Dr. Abby Medcalf with us, and she's an expert in a lot of things, but she's going to talk to us today about leaders who are maybe reconsidering their relationship to alcohol and substances. And she's got a key takeaway we want you all to think about. And Abby, what is that takeaway?
If you're thinking about your drinking, get real with your why, not your what.
Not your what. All right. So there's a lot in there. We could probably talk about that for about 3 hours at least. But we're going to distill it down to something really actionable. Abby, tell our listeners a little bit more about you. How do you serve your community every day?
I have 2 podcasts, much like you. I am a psychologist, author. I've books, and I meet with clients. I work with companies still and executives, helping them be better leaders, be better people, work better, be more effective, all the goods. And so, yeah, I do all that.
And you come to this with your own story to tell, your own lived experience. Can you share a little bit about your backstory?
Sure. I'm a New Yorker, but I live here in California. And I came into all of this. I was going to be a lawyer. I have a bachelor's in poli-sci, but when I was young, I had a really bad drug problem. Heroin was my problem. And when I got clean, I started to branch out, realizing that I didn't want to be a lawyer, that I wanted to work with people. And so that led through getting, a master's in counseling psychology and ultimately a PhD in organizational psychology, because I was doing the work with individuals and then thought, I really want to impact on a bigger level. I want to impact business, because that's really, the leaders, that's really who's changing the United States, right? Changing our world, not just the United States. So, so I've been doing that for many years. And specifically for many years, I helped executives who had drug and alcohol problems in M&A, mergers and acquisitions. So I did M&A for many years, and that has just evolved into more of just a private practice. I don't work for any companies anymore or do that, but I do get called in as a consultant quite a bit and help leaders lead better.
Yeah, and what an important area of work, because, so many times if the quarterback is performing well, we don't want to mess with it, even though we might know that the quarterback is, drinking a case every weekend or whatever. And the same is true with our high-performing executives. And yet we know that executives, like others, are humans. Their rates of addiction are pretty much like everybody else's, about 10%, or living somewhere in the place where their behavior or substance use has taken over their love, work, and play. It's common, but it's unspoken, because people are so focused on the high functioning, because people are so rewarded for their intensity and like making it rain, that people just like to let it slide. So talk a little bit about this idea of getting really radically honest about the why and how that's related to really changing the relationship.
Yeah. So, and all the executives I've worked with and all the people I've worked with all these years, what happens a lot is that things like Dry January happen, right? And it's a time where we really examine our relationship to, let's say, alcohol. And this could be any drug or smoking or really anything, but let's talk alcohol today. And so we spend this time and go, look, I'm not doing it. I'm not drinking. And invariably, people do feel physically better and mentally better, ultimately, depending on how much they were drinking before. But they go back. They go back to drinking, as soon as February 1st hits, or even before. Sometimes it doesn't, people don't always make it. I had a lot of clients not make it through Dry January necessarily. And but we've all done it where you make the promise, I'm not going to drink all weekend, or I'm going to limit it in some way. I'm only going to drink after a certain time, or, certain days of the week. And anytime we start doing that, we're trying to control our alcohol use. Like, I never try to control my broccoli usage, right? Mm-hmm. Like, because I don't have trouble with broccoli, I've tried to control my sugar intake because that's a more addictive substance, right? So the more addictive something is, the more we often try to control it. And that should give you a lot of information right there that there's something. If something's not an issue, we don't try to control it. End of. We just leave it. We know it's going to be okay, or we have little boundaries around it, but they're pretty loose. So what happens for a lot of folks is that they decide they want to stop drinking and they start doing things, right? It's like, oh, I'm not going to hang around with these people, or maybe you go to AA meetings, maybe you go to 12 steps, or you start in therapy, there's a lot of doing, and especially for leaders, because they're so used to seeing a problem, attacking it, coming up with a strategy and an action plan. And so you do the action, right? That makes perfect sense. The problem is that anything like this, like any habit you're trying to change, when you're trying to change a habit, what happens is we have something that from the research is called the motivational wheel. There's a way that everybody moves through motivation. Everybody. This is everybody. Basically, and this was created by two men, Prochaska and DiClemente, and it's a pretty famous in our field, to talk about. But basically, there's a pre-contemplation phase, which is where you don't think there's any problem at all. Like, I don't think I have an alcohol problem, but maybe your doctor said something to you, like, hey, you got elevated liver enzymes. Did you realize that? Or a coworker says, hey, you were pretty wasted at that, lunch the other day. Like, what happened? Or something happens to kind of, you're not really thinking there's a problem, but something happens to go, hey, a first knock on the door. Then we go into what's called contemplation mode, where we're having more things come up. Maybe your partner said something to you. Maybe your kids made a joke about your drinking. Maybe you noticed, like, oh, I don't feel good anymore. When we're younger, we can drink a lot more than when we get older, right? Like, it's starting to have a different wear on the system. And this stage, contemplation, is really marked by ambivalence. We want to stop, but we don't want to stop, right? Like, Monday morning, we really want to stop, and Friday night, we don't, and it goes back and forth, back and forth. If you make a choice and you say, oh, it's dry January, or it's whatever, I'm not going to drink anymore, you go into what we call determination phase. You're really determining what you're going to do, and then you go into an action phase. Okay, and that's when you say, I'm going to go to AA, I'm going to go to a thing, I'm not going to drink after 5, and you make all these rules and you take all this action. But what invariably happens for most people go through, and then you can get into like a maintenance where you don't drink, for a while, or don't smoke cigarettes, or don't eat sugar, or whatever your thing is. But invariably, people relapse. They have a relapse. They go back to drinking or smoking cigarettes or whatever the thing was. And the mistake that people make when that happens is that they jump back to the action phase of that wheel. They go, oh, let me get back to 12-step meetings. Let me get back to my therapist. Let me get back to working out in the morning. Let me get back to. And they go to the list, the what. So what to do. Instead, the mistake there is that instead you need to go back to that contemplation phase, to the ambivalence, to why. You have to get back to your why. Why did you want to stop in the first place? What were the negative consequences for using? What were the things that didn't feel good? Because we can all be goldfish, right? We can all have very short memories when it comes to embarrassments or things that happened, or we can minimize, it wasn't that bad. Joe said something about my drinking because he's, God, he's practically Amish. No wonder he said something. We can like, oh, my wife's always nagging me anyway. They make too big a deal of it. We can easily minimize, dismiss, right? Or forget how something was. So you got to get back to that. Instead of jumping back into action, stop, make a list, write them down, do a brain dump. Here's all the crappy things that have happened due to my drinking or my smoking or my eating poorly, whatever it is. Make a list of all things. That's your list where you have to find your motivation. Now, if you can't come up with much of a list, guess what? you're going to keep drinking. Because it doesn't matter that your wife says, or your husband or whoever says you should stop. It doesn't matter that you're whatever. It doesn't matter. You're gonna go back. So it doesn't go into the to-do list isn't gonna help you, because you're gonna quote unquote fail again. You're gonna relapse again. Most people, by the way, the research shows, go through the wheel of change an average of 4 times before they actually change a habit, before they actually make that change. And it doesn't give you permission then to relapse. I'm not doing that, but I am saying that's the norm. So number one, I want you to normalize that. Like, oh, this is hard. This is hard, because a lot of times because we haven't really figured out our why, it's very easy to slip back in, to drinking again. And so, right. So you're going to quote unquote fail a few times, but each time, if it's really a problem, you're going to find increasing issues. Now, more people are going to notice. Your body's going to feel more worn out after a while. This is a progressive problem. So things will get worse over time. Your 20-year-old drinking self and your 40-year-old drinking self are two very different people. And your tolerance is higher, probably. Pay attention to that, right? So you can really add to that list of the why. What is it that I am trying to gain? Right? Where am I going? So it's not even just, oh yeah, I say I want to, have a lot of energy for my kids, but I'm tired all weekend. Mm-hmm. So if that's on my list, right? I say I want to really kick butt at work, but I'm not being as effective as I could. I have to work 12 hours instead of 8 because I'm not as effective as I used to be. Because that's going to happen too, by the way. So really try to notice what's not working and have that on your list of your why. And it's wonderful to really be driven to what you do want, how you do want to feel. And try to notice how you feel in a dry January or whatever. Yeah, part of you feels crappy, by the way, when you stop. When you first stop drinking, it's really hard. It's hard. You miss it. You miss the comfort. You miss how it felt. You miss the camaraderie. You miss the culture of it. You miss a lot, the taste even. You miss a lot. So there's a lot of loss associated, right? So you're going to have to start thinking not just of the loss, but also about what you want to gain on the other side.
Makes a lot of sense. Are there certain things about being a leader, being an executive, that make people a little bit more prone to addiction or addictive behavior?
I mean, we don't have any research that shows that, but and it's hard for me because that's the people who get referred to me mostly. So, I'm in my own, if all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail, right? So I don't, but there isn't research showing that more what happens is within certain types of industries and company cultures, we all remember the famous Salesforce culture with the kegs in the hallways and, right? So there's certain cultures that really push and different kinds of, some cultures are very pot focused, some are very alcohol focused. It depends. So it's really about the particular work environment, but certainly I think a lot of leaders are feeling the pressure to succeed, and alcohol is wonderful at taking away anxiety initially, right? It is. It for that moment, it's like, it's an exhale. It doesn't last, and it actually has a rebound effect that makes anxiety worse. But in the moment, it feels better. So getting some sort of relief from that. And so what I really suggest usually is that executives find other ways to find, if alcohol is your only relief from anxiety, even if you don't have a problem, you should be finding other things.
That's right. So yeah, a couple other tools in your toolbox.
Yes.
And the friends who also do other things.
Yes.
I have a good friend, and we're all about the walk. And like, if we're at a conference together or whatever, we're out there taking a walk together just to kind of impress. Great. I'm going to go back and do a little bit of a recap, and then I'm going to go back to you with your final thoughts. If you're just tuning in or tuning back in, I'm here with Dr. Abby Medcalf. We're talking about the taboo topic of substance use issues and addictive behavior at the top of the food chain. And how sometimes being a high performer means that those things either get masked or hidden or overlooked or cast aside because we're just focused on the productivity and the ability to reach the goals and get the money in the door. We just don't want to mess with that. But in the end, it hurts everybody. And so really encouraging people to think about this, think about why they might want to change their behavior. Is their identity entirely wrapped around their productivity? Or is there more to it that will give them a richer life? And so thinking about the fact that we have to go circle around these stages of pre-contemplation and contemplation and determination, active action and maintenance a few times before we get it right. It's all about learning new skills and new ways of being in the world. And that getting support to do that really helps. So Abby, what's one thing you want to make sure that our listeners don't miss today?
I would say the thing I say to all my clients is at the end of the day, you want to take action from inspiration, not negative motivation. And if you make sure that that's why you're doing something, you're going to be successful on the other side.
That's right. It's a much better run when you're running towards something that you are really excited about than when you're trying to run away from something that's awful. Yes, exactly. Well, Abby, again, so much gratitude to you and the work that you're doing. And if you want to hear more from Dr. Abby, we are also talking over on the Hope Eliminated podcast, where you're going into a totally different topic, although somewhat related, about burnout and attention management. So tune in over there. Abby, if people want to connect with you more, what's the best way for them to do that?
The website is really the best way. I know you'll link to it. It's just my name, abbymedcalf.com.
Awesome. And again, thank you everyone who made this possible today. Abby and her wisdom. She's also got a bunch of books. I'll put that in the show notes. And our team, David and Chase and Stacy and Elias and everyone, and all of you making this a priority today. So in closing, working minds work well together. There's lots we can learn from each other to improve well-being in our workplaces. Until we meet again, take care.